My name is Nur Sabrina and I will be introducing our article review. Firstly, sociolinguistics studies the relationship between language and society. Our article review focuses on gendered language and linguistic politeness, which explain how men and women may communicate differently and show respect in communication. The first article by Nur Alifah examines gender differences in workplace communication. It finds that men tend to use more direct language, while women often communicate in a more polite and cooperative way. The second article by Amina Zaina Ibrahim 2024 explores gendered language in wider social and cultural contexts. It shows that language differences are also influenced by factors such as age, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status. Overall, both articles show that language is influenced by social and cultural factors and help us better understand gender differences in communication.
Hello, my name is Nur Safwana and I will be explaining about Article 1.
Wow!
And the title for Article 1 is View of the Role of Gender in Language Use Patterns in the Work Environment. So, this article is published by or written by Nur Alifah and in a journal titled Journal of Psycholinguistics, which is published in 2026 in this year. So let's dive in what this article explores. So firstly, this article explores how men and women use language differently at work. It explains how social expectations would shape tone, word choice, and even communication style. Women specifically would often lead towards softer, more indirect language to maintain connection and respect, while men, they tend to use firmer and more direct language to show confidence. So for men, they would use straightforward language and firm language, and a firm tone. The reason behind that is because they want to strengthen their position in the social structure of the organization, and it basically explains why men are mostly in the leadership roles, even in general. So Nur Alifah basically did an experiment. In this article, she stated the results for patterns of politeness between men and women show that women tend to pay more attention to politeness in communication, with the burden of social expectation by the work environment. These differences have an impact on the relationship in the workplace and affect the perception of work effectiveness and relationships between employees. These patterns influence how colleagues see authority, relationships, and effectiveness in workplace. I specifically picked this article because it focused on one thing, which is workplace. If I chose a general topic, it would probably be a bit chaotic or scattered because it has some different categories, but all in all, I think it's just the same if it's in a whole wider perspective. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Hello everyone.
For our second article, we have chosen an article titled Gendered Language, Analyzing Sociolinguistic Differences in Communication. This article is written by Amina Zainab Ibrahim, and it explores how men and women use language differently in communication. So, one of the main ideas presented in the article is that gender functions as a social variable in communication. This means that the way people speak is often affected by social roles or expectations associated with their gender. According to the author Amina Zainab Ibrahim, the linguistic features used by men and women are not random or coincidental. Instead, they are influenced by social norms and expectations and power relations within society. And as a result, communication styles often reflect how men and women behave in different social contexts. The article also discusses regional and cultural differences, and in many societies, women are often described as more descriptive or expressive, and in contrast, men are described as more direct or assertive. These differences do not apply to every individual, but there are actually patterns that are observed through certain cultural contexts. Another important thing to highlight in the article is lexical choice and politeness. Lexical choice refers to the type of words people choose when communicating. So, some studies mention that women are more likely to use more polite or supportive language during a conversation. Meanwhile, men tend to use more direct or straightforward language. These patterns are connected to social expectations, where women are often expected to appear more polite and cooperative, while men are expected to communicate with authority and confidence. The article also explains the use of tag questions and hedges. Tag questions are short questions added at the end of a statement, such as "isn't it?" or "don't you think?" Hedges are words or phrases that soften a statement, such as "maybe," "I think," or "kind of." Research suggests that women use these types of linguistic features more frequently than men because they are often to make communication more collaborative. In addition, the author Amina Zainab Ibrahim also highlights the use of intonation and pitch. Women are often described to use more variation in their tone and pitch to make conversations more engaging, while on the other hand, men are generally described as using flatter or less expressive tones when speaking. However, the article describes that these abilities are influenced by social expectations rather than purely natural abilities. Another point made by the article is that gender language patterns is not fixed. This shows that language is dynamic and can be influenced by social developments. So, to conclude, the article explains that differences in language used by men and women are largely socially constructed, and it is shaped by cultural values, societal expectations, and gender roles rather than biological differences alone. Understanding language helps us recognize how language reflects social structures and how it continues to evolve within the changes of society. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone, my name is Nadira Aisha and I will talk about discussion between these two articles, which is The Role of Gender in Language Use Patterns in the Work Environment, a Sociolinguistic Study of Power and Modesty by Nur Alifa, 2025, and Gender Language Analyzing Sociolinguistic Difference in Communication by Amina Zainab Ibrahim, 2024. The first article discusses how gender influences language use in the workplace, especially in terms of power and politeness. The article used qualitative methods such as interviews and observation based on real-life experience. Findings show men tend to use more direct and assertive language, while women tend to use more polite and indirect expression to maintain harmony in professional interactions. Why we found the first article relatable? Similar communication patterns can be observed in classroom, group discussion, and everyday interaction. For example, some people communicate more directly while others use more polite or indirect expression when interacting with lecturers, leaders, or classmates. The second article discusses gender language in society from a sociolinguistic perspective. The article explains concepts such as politeness, strategies, lexical choices, tag question, hedges, and cultural influences. However, the article mainly used theoretical discussion and lacks empirical data such as interviews or case study. Why we found the second article relatable? The communication patterns discussed can also be seen in daily conversation, friendship, classroom discussion, and social media interaction. For example, women may use more polite expression or hedges, while men may communicate more directly. Related research for both articles show that language reflects gender roles, social expectations, and power relationship in society. Our overall opinion, both articles help us understand how gender and sociocultural factors influence communication style. But the first article is stronger because it includes real-life evidence, while the second article provides a broader theoretical explanation of gender language. That's all. Thank you.
To conclude, the study we explored showed that gender differences in language are shaped by society and not biology. Men often use direct language to assert authority, while women tend to use polite and cooperative expressions. For example, women may use softening phrases or apologies when speaking to colleagues, while men may be more straightforward in giving instruction. These patterns are strongly influenced by stereotypes and social expectations. Gender norms affect how people interact, including assumptions about gossip, emotional expression, and subtle forms of sexist language that reinforce power differences between men and women. The key insight is that understanding these patterns help us see that language reflects social structures and relationships. By being aware of these differences, we can communicate more fairly and respectfully, both in the workplace and in everyday interactions. Overall, comparing real workplace examples with broader social patterns give a clearer picture of how gendered communications works and why challenging stereotypes in language is important for promoting equality.